All right, good morning, good afternoon, happy Saturday. We are going to go live this afternoon with Dr. Eileen Shoals, and we're going to be talking about healthy boundaries and boundaries in relationships across all levels. So here's Eileen now. Yes. Let's go. Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good to have you. Give me one. Can
I
you hear
can
me?
see you. I kind of lost you for a minute with the volume, but I can see you good.
Okay, excellent. I just had to connect to my Bluetooth, so with some technical difficulties. So, Eileen, welcome. Always good to have you on. Eileen is our consistent mental health practitioner and just a wealth of wisdom and knowledge and information on everything from relationships to self-care, self-love, just self-development, personal growth. So maybe you can just share a little bit about your own background, and then we'll jump right into our topic today, which is boundaries.
Yeah, well, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist with a doctorate in clinical psychology. And throughout the years, I've done a lot of different things. I managed a psychiatric facility for women with psychiatric disorders. I ran a drug and alcohol treatment program. I've worked with I don't know how many thousands of people and families doing multifamily group work, and I've trained and supervised. I've done a lot of different things, but my passion is bringing spirit and neuroscience together with clinical theory. For me, there's no, discrepancy between spirit and, science. And so I love bringing them together, helping people feel self-regulated and feel like they have a grip on depression and anxiety and panic and fear. I work with those really deep, heavy, emotional, intense energies and show people how to alleviate that, not only from their cognitions, but from the nervous system. So it's a lot of interesting work that we bring together. I've developed my own protocols for healing. They've been extremely successful with a lot of different types of people. And I've just chosen to do, other than what I'm doing with Hum Hum, I really just concentrate on one-on-one clients for the most part because that's my passion. I've been in management, clinical management for years, but I love working directly with individuals, showing them how to get a grip on life. And so, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, Eileen hosts both one-on-one sessions for folks at Hum Hum as well as our discussion group, which is happening right after this at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 a.m. Eastern time. And we'll be going into boundaries and then breaking out into breakout groups where everyone can kind of connect with each other and talk about um, just reflection questions around that topic. So kick us off. I think today maybe start a little bit on just what are boundaries? What are healthy boundaries? I know you talk about physical, emotional, financial, relational, so much in this topic so I'll
Um,
just let you jump in.
isn't it a massive topic if you really think about it? It's really huge. We could talk about it for weeks. So I did take notes because it's just so much. But I mean, generally speaking, boundaries refer to the barriers that we implement to define physical touch, and proximity. Like this is close enough, or you need to be over there, or whatever it is. Boundaries we know can be visible, but they can also be invisible. And so this is where it gets a little tricky because someone can be setting a boundary, not communicating it verbally, and then we have to interpret what either their body language means or their silence, what that means. And we don't always get it right. And I'll explain some of that, why that is. It goes back to childhood and patterning and modeling and things like that. So boundaries can be visible with body language or eye language. They can be invisible and subject to interpretation. At times they're palpable, right? Depending on how they're verbally expressed. Like, for example, if I were to say, Alexander, back off, that's close enough. Well, not only did you hear that, you're going to feel that in your nervous system because it was intended to be aggressive. So depending on the situation and what's being expressed in the moment determines whether the boundaries are, easily recognized or not recognized. With intention, we can even set up boundaries between our past and our present. So this is why I say the subject is so vast, because obviously when we think of boundaries, we usually think of, okay, I've got to set boundaries at work, or I've got to set boundaries with my partner, or I've got to set boundaries with friends, or with my dog, don't chew the couch, things like that. But sometimes we have to set boundaries within ourselves. Sometimes we have to set boundaries, with how much we drink, how much we eat, sometimes even exercise. Sometimes we're overdoing it, or how much we sleep. But then there are other kinds of interesting boundaries that the more we grow and expand our consciousness, we recognize, oh, I need to put a boundary between my past and my present. In other words, my past doesn't have to come up and infiltrate every single aspect of my present. I can choose to let some things go, or table them for now. They don't need to be a part of this current conversation. They don't need to be a part of my date that I'm on. They don't need to come up at Thanksgiving dinner. That's something I can do a deep dive in my own meditation, my own therapy, life coach, whatever it is I need to do, meditate. I can work on whatever that past trigger is, but it doesn't necessarily need to come up every single time. And this is a healthy boundary that we can set within our own self. So boundaries protect us, if we allow them to, from the past, from being too much in the past, which can create anxiety, but also future tripping, which also can create anxiety or depression. From a neuroscience perspective, when processing sensory data, we identify stimulus and evaluate the stimulus. Healthy boundaries helps a person control and moderate the stimuli at a pace that works for them. Okay? And this information is supported by research studies done by Waldo, Buckford, Weimer, and Nagamoto. You can look them up. Without proper boundaries, people may become overstimulated in a lot of different types of situations and then feel triggered. They might feel fear, rejection, shame, humiliation, or uncomfortable vulnerability. So like, let's say you're out on a date, first date with someone, and it's going pretty well, but you don't have healthy boundaries, and maybe they don't have the greatest. They don't necessarily mean to offend, but they say something that triggers you, and now you're off to the races, right? And we can be triggered by people, circumstances, situations, events, anything at any given moment. So different types of boundaries exist. They can be healthy, they can be loose, they can be rigid, they can be non-existent. And sometimes boundaries that are implemented are actually there as the result of a trauma response. So there's been some trauma, some previous experience, and a person is implementing a boundary, but they may or may not even be aware that it's a trauma response, which is the reason why they're saying, Alexandra, back off, that's close enough. Don't hug me. I don't want a hug. I don't need a hug. I don't need that from you. So let's talk about attachment styles for a few moments. Attachment styles are developed in childhood. And generally speaking, I'm not going to get too much into attachment because that's another huge subject, but people with secure attachment, generally speaking, have healthy boundaries, including flexibility based on the situation and person. So, for example, a person with secure attachment may have strong, healthy professional boundaries at work, but then when they come home and they're with their partner, their family, their kids, whoever, neighbors, it's a little bit looser because they're in a comfortable setting. They can, just wear shorts and a tank top and it's okay. And, it's looser, and they can go with the flow based on what's appropriate, and they have the ability to navigate that experience. People with insecure attachment generally have looser boundaries, which may be more inconsistent or even non-existent. Including undefined parameters. So, there's a lot of gray area. It's not clear to the person with the insecure attachment or people that they're interacting with what's okay, what's not okay. Because the person with insecure attachment generally has been so used to trying to people please to get attention, usually from early caregivers, that they were so uncomfortable not getting that need met, they would rather not set boundaries or confront perpetrators or be in their truth rather than feel rejected. They just put up with whatever. And then people with insecure attachment, I'm sorry, avoidant attachment, also called dismissive attachment. These individuals tend to have very rigid boundaries, including extreme or maybe inappropriate, impermeable, unchangeable walls. You're not even getting an opportunity. You're not getting a chance. I don't trust you. I don't trust anybody. I'm not letting you in. I've been hurt before. People have done me wrong. I hate people. Animals are okay, but I hate people. This type of very rigid, avoid you at all costs, you're not getting in. So there's different types of attachment styles, which obviously contribute to our boundary setting. The human brain organizes itself rapidly in infancy and early childhood in response to outer experiences. And as the child's brain soaks in information, it reorganizes all of that information by forming what we call new neural connections. And actively engaged neurons strengthen these connections. Now, emotional experiences increase, the strength of these neural connections over time. So repeated emotional experiences, they actually, and our response to those experiences, that reinforces the boundaries that we either have in place or don't have in place. Repeated emotional experiences are reinforcing boundaries that we've either learned to set or not set. So regardless to what was created in early childhood or not by early caregivers, we can repattern and we can reprogram. That's the good news. With intention, with authentically reevaluating ourselves and assessing, who am I right now in this moment? How do I want to interact? Let's say that I'm a person who's experienced trauma and different types of violation in my life. I've done a lot of work, maybe in treatment, and now I actually want to go out and date. But that's going to be a little bit scary, right? And I'm not totally sure what kinds of boundaries I need to set. So reevaluating, assessing who I am, how I want to move through the world, what works for me, what's appropriate for me, really recognizing, if I go out on a date and the person I'm on a date with asks for me to contribute half, is that going to feel good? Or if they choose to pay for the whole thing, am I going to be upset by that because I think they want something from me that I'm not necessarily ready to give? So let me assess who I am and be very clear about what works for me and what aligns with my truth and my values. And then I'll navigate my boundaries from there, emotional boundaries, physical boundaries, relational boundaries, financial boundaries, but I've got to first know who I am. And I may not know that based on early caregiving experiences, depending on how functional or dysfunctional, right, the childhood experience was. Now, from a dialectical behavioral therapy perspective, there are 9 boundary skills created. And I want to go over those because I think it can create hope. In terms of, if I'm setting boundaries for myself, this is what I know I'm achieving. So we can recognize our own emotions, which is very important. One of the things we're always talking about with Hum Hum is knowing thyself, right? Being really clear about who I am and how I move through the world. So recognizing your own emotions is important. Am I sad or am I angry? Am I neutral? Am I frustrated? Am I feeling grief? Am I depressed? Am I elated? Am I happy? Is this what happiness feels like? Number 2, it allows us to overcome barriers to healthy emotions. So sometimes we've been so broken or so guarded and had so many boundaries up that we don't even know how to let in healthy emotion, and we don't know when to recognize when that is available and appropriate. Number 3, we can reduce our physical vulnerability, and that's very important. Physical boundaries, depending on what we've been through in life and, where we are emotionally and physically and what we, just our experience. Physical safety is very important, and we can reduce physical vulnerability by having healthy boundaries. We can also reduce cognitive vulnerability, unnecessary mindsets. unnecessary mental paradigms, paranoia, negative stinking thinking, the thoughts that cause us to spiral down and create depression or negativity or anxiety. Healthy boundaries can protect us from that. Healthy boundaries, number 5, can increase our positive emotions. Number 6, we can become mindful of emotions without judging them. Another boundary within the self. So see, notice boundaries can be external, but a lot of them are internal. And in order to create healthy external boundaries, we have to have some really solid internal boundaries. Like I can have an emotion come up and not judge myself for it. It's okay. But what do I want to do with it? How do I want to handle it? What's the most appropriate thing? Then there's number 7, emotion exposure, or in other words, it's okay, it's safe for me to feel. I can tolerate not only my own emotions, but others. It's okay. I can set a boundary if it gets to be too much, but I can also give myself permission to expose myself to the different emotions, of other people, of the person I'm dating, of my family that drives me crazy, or whatever it is. And I can learn to tolerate them. Number 8, I can learn to do the opposite of my emotional urges. So if my emotional urges are unhealthy, I can set boundaries when required to protect myself. And number 9, problem solving. Solid boundaries will help me, with decisive skills and really being able to implement healthy problem solving skills in a variety of situations. So for example, I'm on that date, it was going well, but then the person I'm on the date with said something, I feel really triggered. It's not their fault. They don't know my past. It's only the first date, but I feel really triggered. I don't feel like I can continue this. So I want to let them know that I need to end the date, but I really did enjoy myself with them and I appreciate them sharing their energy with me. And maybe in the future we could do a date that's not on the water, since I had a little childhood issue on the water and that bothered me. Whatever it is, problem solving instead of just running away, or of being avoidant or cutting off and blocking and saying dating isn't for me. How do we problem solve? So I could go on and on. I want to I want to open it up to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think there's so much here to kind of dive into, but I think what you said about just knowing kind of what boundaries you set with yourself and also like honoring those will help to kind of create other relationships where you can have healthy boundaries as well. So I'm curious, I have, I guess, 2 questions. What are some maybe reflection questions around boundaries with self that we can give people to think about so that they can check in on how am I doing with setting healthy boundaries within so that then I can set healthy boundaries without?
Mhm. And I have a few. So, what is self-worth to me? What does it look like and feel like in my life? Okay, because if I know what that is, I can navigate and set my boundary bars from that space. How can I reclaim that self-worth and really live it? How do I know if I'm valuing myself? How do I actually personally define boundaries? And when are they necessary? When do I believe I need to implement them? How does my own family or community influence my ideas about boundaries? Okay. And I'll give you an example. Let's say you grew up in a very, not to be offensive to anyone, but let's say a very religious family that had some very strong dogma about lifestyles. And, but as you know, expanded your consciousness, you don't necessarily agree with that. Okay. And so recognizing my family's boundaries are going to look very different from my boundaries because I don't share the same truth. I don't have that same value system, right? So taking an honest look at family and culture and community and all of those things and always realigning to our truth, that's a boundary in and of itself, right? And one other, what does boundary setting look like if I am valuing myself consistently?
Yeah, so yeah, what I'm hearing is like so much of what is happening within an individual who's setting healthy boundaries is checking in with the self, like how am I feeling about myself to begin with, so that I can then act from a place of self-honoring and self-valuing. And that's where the boundary then can come from if needed, or if it's like, oh, actually I can be a bit more flexible and that was actually a trauma response and I can soften here. Like knowing that you're valuing yourself as kind of the starting point. And how do we know, I guess, how can one decipher if something, like if we need to kind of like fortify a boundary or like relax a boundary a bit so that we can, yeah, just navigate our experience?
Always honor your truth. Always, always, always honor your truth. So pay attention to that gut check and the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you notice your shoulders are doing this, you're next to someone, they're talking, and they're very close, and you notice you're tense, you notice your jaw's locked, you notice your eyes are going back and forth, you're checking your surroundings. If you notice you're not in your normal, whatever you consider your normal,
Mm-hmm.
healthy, relaxed state, something is triggering you. Maybe the amygdala is sensing fear, you're maybe moving into fight or flight, you're having some stress responses, you're trying to keep it together, but you're not. And we all know what that's like, right? You know, think about having a conversation with someone and you really have to go to the bathroom. But they're talking, you know, and they're you know, maybe you're in a meeting or something and you really have to go and you're kind of distracted, right? You're not really completely present because you need to go to the bathroom or whatever it is. So paying attention to your internal and your external and honoring your truth. There are some, because of, you know, pheromones, hormones, there are going to be times when somebody checks all the boxes, maybe on paper, and when we're around them, it just isn't working. We don't know why. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel aligned. And rather than try to fit a square peg in a round hole, honor that. Because there's something inside of you subconsciously and consciously working together to let you know. But but let's look at more practical things. If we have, do we still have a couple more
Yeah, we
minutes?
have a few
Okay,
more minutes. Yeah.
okay. So I want to give a real example. So I went to a workshop recently that had a lot of clinicians, medical doctors, nurses. There were yoga instructors and lots of holistic and, you know, lots of different people coming together that like help the planet in different ways. But we got really open. It was a workshop for healing the wounded healer. Okay. So we, who are normally on the front lines helping everybody else, we were super open, super vulnerable with the deep dive healing work that we did. And our instructor literally gave us, she didn't tell us what to do, but she literally said, okay, you're open now. Be very careful. Don't drink too much. Those of you that smoke, don't smoke too much. She was like, be mindful that there might be parts of you that want to go hook up with somebody. Be careful not to go down a road that you're going to regret because you're emotionally vulnerable. Boundaries, right? And you know, we're all working professionals, and she's giving us this, but it really was really interesting to remember that, yeah, when we're emotionally vulnerable, if we've been open, we've been to therapy, or we have even physical body work done, you know, you know, or you just had a breakup, or somebody in your family passed away, your pet died. We are very, very vulnerable in those moments, and that might be a time to implement very strong boundaries. We can always loosen them, but we might want to just come in, and boundaries don't have to be this tight. Sometimes when you're super open, just close it up a little bit. Just close it up a little bit. Check in, see how you're doing. How are you relating to the external world right now? What do you need? Do you need to eat? Do you need some water? Do you need some rest? Do you need to hang out with friends? Or is that too much right now? Honor what you need. Give that to yourself and hold back right now from those things that might not be the greatest level of support. They might be great on the weekend, but right now, check in with where you are. Does this work or not?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I started with be true to yourself, be authentic. If we know ourselves and we're honoring our truth, we know when it's okay to, you know, eat that slice of pizza versus when I'm on salad detail right now, salad and fruit and water. You know what I mean? Because you know yourself and you know that eating that pizza is going to trigger you maybe because of carbs or sugar or whatever. It's just going to open you somewhere you don't need to go. So being true to self, being authentic and honoring all that mind, body, spirit, energy, what is coming up for you, what's surfacing, how's your body communicating to you? Listen.
Mm. Yeah, I think too, I've heard a lot of people say like sometimes when I hear like, what is it I need or what is it I want, I feel blocked or I have a hard time like really checking in with myself, right? There's like challenge to get to that place of clarity to know what's needed and best. Do you have any, I guess, advice for people when they're in that space of like not feeling clear on how to self-nourish or self-care in a moment? Like other than, pause, just maybe not react. Like, what do you offer there?
Um, okay, so one of the things, this is just a brain protocol, always breathe, always breathe. So just a basic breathing in through the nose, out through the nose, and then in through the nose, out through the mouth, and in through the nose, out through the mouth, sigh out. That breath, that simple breath, acts like a recapitulation machine,
Mm,
and it clears the slate. Now, in the clear space, you can say this very simple thing. I give myself permission to activate whatever it is, a healthy boundary, a new way of thinking, a more positive attitude, better eating habits, clearer communication style with loved ones. You can activate anything and everything. So when you're not clear what it is, then you can say, I give myself permission to be the best version of myself in this moment. I give myself permission to activate a higher way or a better way of being. I give my brain and body permission to sync up and work together so I always know my truth. I give my right and left brain permission to sync and work harmoniously. I give myself permission to access ideas that are not currently on the radar screen regarding how I can improve my life.
mm,
So you just do the breath and give yourself permission to reach a higher paradigm of thought or beliefs or action, even if you don't know what it is. It doesn't even have to be on the radar screen. That's how sophisticated our brains are.
mm,
All you're doing is breathing, create the space, clear the space with the breath. And of course, you can sage and pull out your Palo Santo and incense and all that too. But, we don't always have time for that. You're in the elevator, just breathe real quick. Breathe, clear the space, and then just even simple, I activate new. And let's say you don't even remember that. Brain, reset, clear, reset, new ideas, new thoughts, new paradigms with breath, breathe. So there's so many ways you can just implement very quickly a new protocol like that.
love that. I think that's so huge. And I think too, like we don't have to get all up in our heads about it. We don't have to cognitively solve it, that we can just reset, come back to breath, blank slate, and open to the fact that we might be able to, that we definitely can access ideas, concepts, ways of showing up that are not in our immediate field. And that if we open, we can actually receive that. I think that's just such a good
Mhm.
reminder.
And this gets into a little bit more quantum, and I won't go too deep into that, but here's the thing. When you do that, not only do you access things that they're not conscious, but they may be subconsciously already in your file folders in your brain. You already may have some neural paths that you forgot about, or you just never filled those folders, but the folders are there and ready. But you're also tapping into our brains are like radio transmitters. So when you just open yourself to a new idea that might not currently be on the radar screen, well, it's in the quantum. It might be in Alexandra's head right now, or it might just be floating around, but you have access to that when the moment you give yourself permission to dial into whatever else is out there that's available. And you may not even know what it is. It's okay. Because there's a part of you, whether you want to call that spirit or subconscious or whatever, universe, whatever you divine, that does know.
Mm.
There's a part of you that does know. There's a higher self part of you that always knows what serves your highest good. Now, some people call that, the higher self. Some people call that spirit, whatever, soul, whatever you want to call that. There is a part of you that has your highest good as its purest intent, and that part knows.
Mm. Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, and that's the place from which we can check in to then assess our boundaries, I guess, to circle back. Yeah, that's so powerful. Thank you so much, Eileen. This was really great. And for those of you who are tuning in and want more of Eileen's wisdom and wonderfulness, we're hosting a discussion group in a half an hour from now. And I'm actually hosting a breath and meditation in about 10 minutes. And you can sign up on our website just for the discussion group, and we'll give you access to both of those things. So hope to see you there. Anything else you want to say before we close?
I just want to encourage everybody to know that although life is challenging, we got this. We
Mm.
got it. We could do this. We are coming on here sharing all the tools we know, and you all have a piece. We have a piece. We all bring it together. We're in this together. We got this. We can learn all the things we need, to really survive and thrive. So that's kind of my little message.
Love that. Yes, we've got this. Thank you
We
so
got
much.
it.
Awesome. Yeah, the discussion group, we don't tape those, but this is recorded and we'll be sharing that. And yeah, and we're there every other week. So feel free to join. If you can't make this week, we're there every other week. And you can also book a session with Eileen through our site. So many
Hi, guys.
options. Yeah, DM us for, with any questions you have. Have a beautiful rest of the day.
Bye, everyone.